Well, hello and welcome to our 2020 Virtual Candidate Forum. On behalf of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for tuning in and thank our candidates for participating. I'm Sarah Hagan, President of the Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined by Nikki Devitt, President of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce, in hosting this call. And I want to start by giving a quick introduction to the forum. Our Chamber's Government Relations Committee looks forward to hosting this event every year to give our residents and business owners a chance to hear directly from the candidates on some of the issues facing our area. Obviously, this year has presented some unique challenges, causing us to pivot and adapt, leading us to this new virtual format, which we are excited to present for our communities. The candidates we have joining us today are running for the state representative seat for the 105th District. We have with us Ken Borton and Jonathan Burke. The questions that will be asked were created by our forum moderator, Scott Ledour, Professor of Political Science at North Central Michigan College, and then vetted by our Government Relations Committee. Candidates, you will be asked questions by our moderator in a rotating order so that each of you has an equal opportunity to be the first to answer. You will each have 90 seconds to answer the questions. We will hold up time cards indicating when we are at 30 seconds and 10 seconds, and then we will move along when your time is up. So with that, we will turn it over to our moderator, Scott, and begin the forum.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the candidates tonight. So we will alternate questions. So the first question will start with Ken, and then we'll go to Jonathan, and then the next question will start with Jonathan and go to Ken. And so here is the first question. The state of Michigan has been in reaction mode over the past few years. Challenges such as the decline of the state's population, the failure of the Midland Dam, and the Flint water crisis have found the state unprepared and overwhelmed. In your opinion, what issue or series of issues should the state be more proactive on in order to avoid these types of situations in the future? So first to Ken and then to Jonathan.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Yeah, that's obviously a pretty important question. My background is a property manager. I owned my own business for 42 years. So I certainly understand the benefit of being proactive and not being reactive to situations. It costs you a lot more money to jump in and take care of things after you have a problem with them than it does up front. As far as having all the answers, obviously I don't have all the answers at this point on what the state needs to do. But what I'll do is I'll do the same thing that's made me successful for 42 years in business, and that will be to surround myself with people that are experts in the area, people that are a lot smarter than I am on all these issues. And we'll sit down and we'll come up with some solutions. We'll come up with a plan of action, and we'll move forward so we're not always dealing with things in a crisis mode.
Jonathan.
Thank you. Being proactive is the definition of being a paramedic, and that's what I've been for over a decade, as well as a critical care nurse. Having a little bit of foresight goes a long way, right? The ounce of prevention type of thing, right? And I think a lot of these things are not beyond our reach, beyond our vision. I mean, our infrastructure needs help, so we need to make that a priority. And I want to make things a priority that matter. And what matters to me are really three basic things, and that's education. I think we need to educate everyone as best we can, offer the best education possible. We need to assure healthcare, take away a lot of the stress of that, and we need to assure opportunity to everyone. And when you do these things, when you focus on these things, all these other things kind of pale, right? You start to see things before they come. You start to nip things in the bud. And that's what I've been doing for the last decade, is trying to see things before they come. And honestly, I have a principle that we shouldn't make any decisions without the seventh generation in mind, and I will do that.
Thank you. So this question will start with Jonathan and then go to Ken. Jonathan, surveys of young parents have found that they are having fewer children than they would like to have. When asked, these parents respond that the lack of affordable childcare, the burden of college loan payments, and the need to maintain two incomes make it difficult to create the family size that they desire. In light of the news that the state's population is declining, what support can the state offer young families?
Well, I think this speaks to the decline of our family units. But I think where we will differ is what's causing that decline. Arguably, the biggest stressors on a family are finances. So paying livable wages, assuring things like healthcare, which is after rent and food, is the next biggest stressor. Helping families with childcare so that they can go to work. I feel, again, I'll say this, big proponent of first principle thinking, which is you do away with all the assumptions and just go back to what we know. And if you start with livable wages and assuring healthcare, my vision is watching the divorce rates go down, watching the crime rates go down, watching the abortion rates go down because people feel that they can afford to have a child. That's the number one reason that women claim, that was their reason for it. So when you start to attack these base roots, everything else flourishes. It's these little foxes, nipping at the roots that we've got to attack, and that's my biggest focus.
Thank you, Ken. Oh, we're on mute.
There we go.
There you go. You're back.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of real life experience in this area too. I've got my wife and I. We've got 2 daughters. We've got 5 grandchildren, so we know what it's like to try to rear a family and to deal with childcare. I think it comes down to achieving a balance here. I mean, we know right now, especially in northern Michigan, we've got a real problem with living wage jobs. And that's very important. So what's happening now is both parents are having to work just to survive. And that obviously creates a problem where one of the parents are no longer able to stay home and take care of childcare. But as far as the state getting involved, in that process, I think that's something that families are going to have to work out. I think grandparents obviously are going to have to step up. Churches will have to step up. It's something that can be dealt with. But the 2 issues are living wage jobs and obviously having homes that young couples can afford. I think that'll go a long ways in helping to determine how we deal with childcare.
Thank you. The next question will start with Ken. What steps should the state government take to prepare for COVID-19 during the upcoming flu season?
Well, I wish I had the answer to that. That's another area. My wife is an RN. I hear from her, what the hospitals are doing, what folks are doing. I don't know exactly what the state should do. I think what's happened in the past, the state has not done a very good job with that. I think completely shutting down the state for a while and continuing to shut a lot of things down have drastically hurt businesses. And I think in an attempt to eradicate this virus, we have created irreparable harm to our economy, which I think is going to cost us all in the long run, much more than what the virus has. I've had it. I tested positive for COVID. I'm one of the 99% that obviously survived. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's a real thing, but it's certainly not a death sentence, as I think the media would lead a lot of people to believe.
Jonathan.
Well, obviously, as a healthcare professional, this is my background. And, mandates aside, let's look at what works. Masks work, and test results say about 30% efficacy rate, just a little bit. Biggest thing is social distancing, right? Hand washing, not touching your face. My big push, boost your immune system. It's a virus, right? The best defense is a good offense. But ultimately, none of those things individually does a lot of good, right? So they're each an individual piece of the mitigation process. When you put it all together, it actually works really well. And I envision going forward with this, that these are great tools that we've learned to use and implemented into our daily lives. And I was saying from the get-go, I look forward to people adopting these as ritual habits and watching our flu rates go down. Upwards of 60,000 flu deaths a year come down. Ultimately, yes, bringing back the economy is super important, but not at the expense of human life. And the two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. I would have loved to have been in those conversations when they were talking about shutting down the government, because there's a lot of things that we could have done better. And I just would have liked to have been the voice of reason in those meetings to say, yeah, that's a good idea, but let's do this instead.
Thank you. So this question starts with Jonathan then. Local school districts in our district, in the 105th district, have reported that enrollment of K through 12 students has jumped quite substantially this fall due to seasonal residents deciding to stay up north for the winter and enroll their children. What steps can our region take to provide reasons for these people to remain here full time? So starting with Jonathan.
Well, obviously, they're not going to stay if they can't work, right? So, and this isn't a problem for us, obviously. We've got internet service, but there are a lot of areas that don't. So I've got a rural broadband initiative that I'm pushing forward where we use a limited but targeted public sector investments, but into newer technologies like TV white spaces and satellite and those kind of things. We have to assure that people can work. We've seen that half the jobs somewhere around there can be done from home. We just have to facilitate that. And our education system up here is top notch. I've talked with a lot of educators and superintendents, and one of my big pushes is also to boost our education system to bring more people up here. We have a better education system, people are going to want to stay, right? So what they were telling me, what the educators are telling me, is just cut the ties to the strings of all the money that they're getting. They said they're getting enough money, their hands are tied with it. So let educators do what they are trained to do and educate, and let them come up with new ways to teach our youth and inspire our youth to learn. And ultimately, like I said, if you focus on education, healthcare, opportunity, people are going to want to stay here. Obviously, it's a beautiful place. The draw is there. Now we just have to build up the infrastructure to keep people here.
Thank you. Ken.
Living in northern Michigan. Whoop. Okay, I wasn't sure. Do you want me to unmute myself, or? Okay, you got it. All right. As we all know, those of us have been up here for a while, and I've been here for 25 years. My wife is born and raised here, and she's a third generation from this area. Northern Michigan is a very, very special place to be. The people are special up here. A lot of people have asked me, why are you running? And to put it in a nutshell, it's going to be to protect our way of life here in northern Michigan. So that is very important. To get people, it's easy to get people to come up here and stay. Come up here, but it's tougher to get them to stay. And like Jonathan said, it's very important that we provide or come up with a way to provide employment opportunities. The internet has opened that up quite a bit. As a county commissioner here, we're working very closely with several broadband companies to expand broadband in the area. I'm in northern Michigan because of broadband. Without it, I would not be here. So there's a lot of things like that that we can certainly do. But bottom line, we obviously at the same time, we need to protect our natural resources. We need to do all the things that have made this a beautiful place to be and why people want to come here in the first place.
Okay, thank you. So this question starts with Ken then. Young people in Michigan are now competing in a global job market. However, the state funding for higher education was lower in 2018 than it was in 2008. Colleges and universities have been forced to raise tuition, making it more difficult for our young people to get the skills and knowledge they need to succeed. What solutions are you willing to support in the face of this challenge?
Yeah, those are, okay, I'm back on.
Yes.
Those are some things that are very important to me. I sit on an advisory board for Kirtland College here in Gaylord. These are things that obviously every college is wrestling with. Taking a look at how can they change their curriculum to provide the type of education that's really needed up here. I think we need to make sure that we really dive in more heavy into skilled trades. That's something that is definitely needed in this area. Give me some more of the question again.
Sure.
Try to get
So funding has been cut over the last decade, ever since the financial crash in 2008, makes colleges and universities, forces them to raise tuition, making it more difficult for young people to access higher education. So what solutions are you willing to support in the face of this challenge?
Yeah, and this is an area that I'm not an expert in, but I would certainly talk with superintendents, find out exactly what kind of support they're looking for. I don't think necessarily throwing more money at it is going to be the issue from the state, but we'll certainly take a look. Once I surround myself with the people who know what's necessary to provide the education for folks, that we'll sit down and we'll come up with a plan that's going to work well.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Well, the cost of education is only been raising by exponential numbers over the last several decades, and really ever since we guaranteed that people could get loans for it. Focusing on skilled trades is super important, and I think we can identify people at a younger age of what they'd rather do, instead of kind of funneling everybody into the college route, the liberal arts degree. Not everybody wants that, and I've spoken with many friends and family members who did several years at a college, community college or university, and then found out really wasn't for them. So if we focus more of our metrics less on test scores and look at life skills, critical thinking, social awareness, personal achievements, when we start educating to these things rather than, like I said, test scores, I think we're going to see just immense leaps and bounds in our education system. I envision making Michigan a top place for schools by increasing funding and making that our top priority, and sitting back and watching all the other states try to catch up. That's my vision for Michigan.
Thank you. This question starts to Jonathan then. How do we support small business as Michigan seeks to recover from the economic shocks of 2020?
Well, already, and I did a little blurb on this on my website, that I've already identified in our budget over $140 million in big corporate tax breaks that we can use to help small businesses recover. I'm all for that. And there's a lot more money, a lot more things we can do. We can expand access funding to community development financial institutions, rural entrepreneur assistance programs, expand rural business investment companies. There's so many things that we can do. And it's just a matter of making it a priority. Again, I absolutely see the need for this. I want all businesses that have closed or struggled to recover from this. I want all people who have lost their jobs and struggled through this to recover from this. And again, these ideas are not mutually exclusive. They are coupled. They are closely joined. And by working on one, you help the other, right? But I envision that. Again, this is prioritization. The big corporations are doing great. Record profits. Do they need our tax money? Absolutely not. Do the small businesses need it? Absolutely.
Thank you. Ken.
Yeah, this is an area that will definitely differ on. being a small business owner, like I said, for the last 42 years, I'm very, very familiar with the needs of small business in the state. And I'll tell you, in those 42 years, I never took a dime from the state. I never asked for it. I never needed it. Small businesses are made up of solid entrepreneurs, especially the ones that have been there for a while. And what they're looking at, they're not looking for a handout. They're not looking for any financial benefit from the state. What they're looking for is lower taxes, and they're looking for reduced regulations. That's the problem. We get a lot of folks in Lansing who decide they know what's best for small business and they don't know how to make them successful. They don't. It takes the guy in the trenches that has built that thing from the ground up. And like you said, they don't want the money from the state that usually comes with strings attached to it that make it even more difficult to be successful. So as far as to get businesses back on track, government, get out of the way and let people do what they do well and what they know how to do. And you'll be amazed at how fast the state is going to turn around.
Thank you. So this question starts with Ken then. Please provide an example of where each of you or yourself, where you are different from most of the members of your political party. So this starts with Ken.
Where I'm different from most of the members of my political party. You know, that's a good question. A lot of people have had to ask me, what party are you? Are you a Democrat or you're a Republican? Because from talking with me, they don't know. I've never viewed myself as a politician. I've viewed myself as a small business person who happened to have a lot of government experience. You know, I've been a county commissioner for 10 years. I'm immediate past president of the Michigan Association of Counties in Lansing. I sit on the board of directors for the National Association of Counties in Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you, I've worked with people for years. In fact, I've got a very quick story, which I'll put in here. I worked with a gentleman out of Saginaw, who is a former state rep. He's a county commissioner. Him and I served on many different committees around the state and around the country. And we were in Washington, D.C. having lunch one day, and we're having a conversation. And I said something, and he says, "Ken, are you a Republican?" And I said, "Yeah, aren't you?" We had no idea what the other person's party affiliation is, because when you roll up your sleeves and you work hard, it really doesn't matter. So as far as, you know, what I do different or you know, I don't make decisions based on my party.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Well, where do I start? I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm pro-life. And I'm pro-Second Amendment. And I'm a firm believer in our Constitution and our right to peacefully assemble. I will fight vigilantly for those things because I believe in them. Now, that doesn't mean that I take the typical stance on those issues, though. We can have, you know, gun laws that are sensible, that keep, you know, children safe, and we can have abortion laws that still allow for the rare instances of human life being threatened. So ultimately, not interested in party politics, not interested in towing a party line. I even wrestled with what party to run as, because to me, it means less the party that you're involved with. It means more your principles, your morals, your integrity, and ultimately your compassion, because I think that's where I feel I differ from a lot of typical politicians, is that I'm trying to legitimately walk in someone else's shoes, see things from their perspective, and help them the best that I can. I'm a public servant, so I just want to extend that.
Thank you. So this question will start with Jonathan. What did you learn about our state's economy, communities, and our society as a whole in the last 6 months? And what will you do differently in 2021 because of what you have learned during the COVID pandemic of 2020? Starts with Jonathan.
Well, I've learned through several documentaries that we are being polarized. And to what end, I don't know, but the end does frighten me. So my big push is to bring people back to the center. Let's bring everybody to the table. Let's talk about real solutions to these problems we're facing. Let's not exclude science, and evidence. Let's not be anecdotal about things. Let's look at things for what they are. Are the things we're implementing helping? And we can look at government that way too. Are the things we're doing, do they have the desired effect? Can we revamp? Can we restructure? Or do we have to completely, take over to that first principle thinking, start over, get away from all assumptions? Probably the biggest thing I would say is my push to put first responders first. Obviously, I'm a medic. I know how hard that job is. And a lot of people don't understand that we're retiring more medics than we're licensing. I've got a great plan for this. Most people don't understand that an ambulance service is classified as a transportation service, so can't bill appropriately. And so the wages are low. So these are a lot of the things I'm trying to tackle, a lot of the big issues that our populace is facing.
Thank you. Ken.
Yeah, I think the things I've learned, which I've kind of known all along, but what this last 6 months has really pushed it, is obviously the importance of family and being able to work with your family and sit down and discuss what's really important in our lives. I think so much information is coming through social media right now. I think we've all learned that so much of that information is tainted. You don't know what to believe anymore. And you really need to sit down and talk with your neighbors, talk with your family, reach out to fellow church members and determine what's really important. And that's why I mentioned before that Northern Michigan really is a special place to live, because a lot of the things that we see nightly on the news going on around the world really has not gotten to us yet. And that worries me that if we don't continue to do the right thing, to raise our kids, raise our grandkids in an important way, that that they're going to let social media make their decisions for them. And that's something I think that's very scary. And as parents and grandparents, we need to stay on top of that.
Thank you. The next question starts to Ken then. A petition is circulating in Michigan, which, if successful, would allow the Michigan legislature to repeal all or parts of the 1945 Emergency Powers Act without the governor having an opportunity to issue a veto. Governor Whitmer has used the Emergency Powers Act to issue a number of executive orders in response to the COVID pandemic. Do you support this petition? And if elected, would you vote to repeal part or whole of the Emergency Powers Act? To Ken first.
Yeah, I absolutely do support the petition. I have signed the petition. I think it's we're at a point that we have to be extremely careful when we have one person in our state that has the kind of power to devastate us the way we have been devastated. And I'm mainly talking about our economy without having input from the legislators. I mean, those are people obviously that our citizens have put in to that position as checks and balances. I mean, we've got our judiciary, we've got our executive branch, we have our legislative branch. Anytime you give one of those more power than they need to do their job, that's a scary situation for me. So I think we definitely need to repeal that. We need to spell out very clearly what powers we're giving to our governor. And I don't want our governor, no matter whether it's a Democrat or Republican, to be able to pick and choose which laws they're going to use to lord over us.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Well, I feel like this is kind of trying to push me into a spot that I really don't want to be in. It's a tough question. The question for me is, what was this law initially put in place for? And Why are we going to look at undoing something that was done, decades ago? Because our governor acted, in my book, she was acting on the side of caution and trying to save lives, and arguably did so. Again, I will speak to the fact that I wish I was there in when they were making these policies. I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunities there. All of our outside work, didn't need to be shut down. Using our masks, using our social distance, and these, washing our hands, we could still work, right? We could have done all our road work in that shutdown. That's a missed opportunity. But again, all of this is looking back on it in hindsight, which is like the year 2020. We were the best in the nation at one point for our death rate going down, and we've been doing really well with that. So repealing it, I would look at it, but I want to know what all that entails.
Thank you. The next question starts to Jonathan then. The Center for Public Integrity has ranked Michigan last in the nation when it comes to government transparency, especially when it comes to the Michigan legislature and the executive branch in Michigan. What measures would you support for increasing government transparency in the legislature and in the executive branch of Michigan? So to Jonathan.
Well, I was looking at the committees, and I really wanted to be on the ethics committee, and because I have a big push to get money out of politics, and we need to know where money's coming from, where it's going. We're doing okay with that, but there's still too many loopholes. And honestly, increasing transparency is paramount, right? We have to know what's being done. Things can't be done behind closed doors. And I think one issue I would push for is the fact that one bill is one issue. No putting other things into bills, kind of sliding them in there last minute, or tucking them in on page 900, so that people can actually see what's going on. You don't have to have a law degree to read through this. We can have simple synopsis of these bills that are truthful and, again, transparent. You can look them up, but again, I've done this and I've spent hours reading these proposals and going, man, what are they trying to do here? It's not very clear. It seems very convoluted. And as a legislator, I would absolutely work to make sure everybody knows what we're doing at all times, and there's no sort of shady, backroom deals or things tucked in on the end of the bills, those kind of things.
Thank you. Ken.
Yeah, transparency is critical. I can't believe that we even have to talk about this or decide if it's important or not important. As a county commissioner, it's everything we do. People are able to access that information. They can ask for that. They can look at information from my telephone, my laptop, desktop, anything that I've done in the government. And that was one of the things that I was shocked to learn, that that's not the case, with the legislature, with the governor, that they're able to do these things, and nobody's able to petition for those records and get that information. I think that's clearly wrong. And that's certainly one of the things I would want to take a look at and make sure that the average person has the ability to access that information and see what's true and what's not.
Thank you. The next question goes to Ken then. One of you will presumably win this election. How should voters judge you after you complete your first term and when you seek re-election, presumably in 2022? What benchmarks would you set for yourself now? So first to Ken.
Okay. Let's see. After the first year,
First 2 years. Sorry, first term.
Oh, first term. I'm sorry.
Right. Yep.
The first term. I would certainly want people to see that I'm open and will continue to communicate with them and seek their input. which is the biggest thing for me. I'm not going to Lansing to lord over my constituents. I'm not going to place more regulatory reform and that type of thing. I want to make sure that they can see that, Ken, since you've gotten there, you've gotten rid of some of the burdensome, regulations on businesses, which means my company has been more successful. I've been able to hire more people. I want people to see that after 2 years. I want people to see some of the things that I've done as president of the Michigan Association of Counties that I couldn't believe had not been done. And that's an organization that's been around since the 1800s. Fabulous organization. I'm so glad to be a part of it. But what I want to continue to do is what I've done with them is I've actually brought in all the different elected officials, their organizations, to meet on a quarterly basis to talk. And I'm going to do that same thing with all 5 counties. We've learned a lot here in Otsego County, and I want to make sure that I can sit down and share that information with the other counties so they can be successful like we've been.
Thank you. Jonathan.
I'm on the firm belief that government that governs best is that which governs least, as Thoreau said. I'd like to see us take like I said, a hard, critical look at all our laws that have been shown to not having that desired effect, and revamping and fixing things. That's what I want to do. And I had a conversation with a voter who said, "Oh, you're running as a Democrat. Well, you have to do what they say." And I don't know how to tell people that I'm my own man, and I try to see every issue from as many sides as possible before making any sort of opinion about it. And if people don't like that, well, they can vote me out the next term. And if I'm a one-term guy, so be it. But again, I'm not towing party lines. I'm there to fight for my constituents. Side note, if you look at all these groups that get together, there's a group for every possible profession. The police, the realtors, the doctors, and every possible doctor there is. But there's all these advocacy groups, but there's not a patient advocacy group. And that's, when I found that out, I realized that that's what I wanted to be. The patient advocate I've always been.
Thank you. The next question goes to Jonathan then. High waters on the Great Lakes in the past year have damaged the Little Traverse Wheelway, eaten away at waterfront parkland, and caused headaches for lakefront residents. While this is primarily a concern for local governments at the moment, what action can the state take to mitigate further damage from high water, both around the Great Lakes and in interior bodies of water? First to Jonathan then.
Yeah, that's a tough question. And the reason is because, things ebb and flow, right? They'll be high this year and low next year. And the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. But there's lots of things that we can do, including declaring a state of emergency and using our Army Corps of Engineers to come in and help. We've got literally an army of people that are well-trained in natural disasters and just waiting for the call. And I say we can use these systems, better. We can use them anytime we choose. I was actually just talking with a few constituents that like 11 of their homes on one lake up here got flooded. And they were looking at different solutions. And I was looking for solutions for them as well. And what I came across was to get rid of the brine from our oil and gas industry, they dig a well. And I was talking with some engineers as well to figure out, could this be used to lower lake levels on smaller lakes? And they said, absolutely. That's a great way to do it. And you can stop it when it gets too low. If it, so you can, almost like a stopper. And I thought that was a great solution. And just by talking with people, you find those solutions, reaching out.
Thank you. To Ken then.
Yeah, Scott, I've actually had to deal with this here in northern Michigan. Being chairman of the County Board of Commissioners, like you said, a lot of this has fallen onto townships to try to deal with. And I've talked with numerous folks on our inland lakes around here with the issues that they're having. And the frustration they have is that when they talk to all these various government agencies, they get different stories. They find out they're not really working together. And that's why I wound up, you can go to my web, or not my website, but the county's website and see exactly what we did. I put together a task force and I brought in the folks from the DNR, from Eagle, from, all the various government agencies that would deal with this and sit down and talk with them at the same time. Because that's one of my frustrations is when these agencies will give the average person different information. So what I have found is we had to wind up cutting through a lot of red tape up here because one agency will say this is what you need to do to protect your property. Another one will say, well, no, you can't do that. It might be a problem with the health department may not like that solution. So one of the things that I think what we can do, especially for the Great Lakes shorelines, is to make sure that Eagle is able to get flexible with the regulations and allow people to jump in there and do the things they need to do right away, whether it's bringing in boulders or whatever they need to protect their property, instead of waiting to the point where it has completely eroded and it's a complete mess. And again, that comes with smaller government, less regulations. Let the experts deal with it.
Thank you. This question starts with Ken then. Ken, if you could change one thing about how the state of Michigan is run, what would it be?
Wow, just one thing?
We only have so much time.
Yeah, wow. That's a good question. I think it just continues to fall back on, we need to take a look at making our state government smaller. Like I've said to so many people on the trail here, that not every problem we have here needs a new program. It doesn't need a new tax. There's ways that we can deal with a lot of this stuff locally. So if I had to pick one thing to make this, government work better, it's going to be to find out how to make the government smaller, how to make it more efficient, how to make it more customer friendly. And if we can figure out a way to do that, Michigan is going to be a much nicer place to live.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Well, I am a firm believer that legislation should be a last resort. And when you educate people on issues and propose solutions and ask them to voluntarily comply, usually they do, and problems are solved. So I really will push for that, do we really need all these laws? Do we really need new laws? But I know you said one thing, but ultimately to me, this comes down to the base of people that are in our legislature. We have a lot of business people, we have a lot of lawyers, but where's our teachers? Where's our construction workers? Where's our EMS personnel? The more broad the base you get, the greater solutions that you get. By bringing everybody to the table, you get to hear ideas and even problems you didn't know even existed. So by excluding people, excluding groups, you can never find lasting solutions. And I would love to see our government just filled with our everyday workers, union workers, and like I said, a firefighter or two, get people that are in there that are passionate about people, because that's what government is and should be.
Thank you. So this next one will be the last question. Since we started with Ken, the last question will start with Jonathan. Jonathan, the last question to you. What is the biggest challenge facing Northern Michigan over the next few years, and what initiatives will you support to meet that challenge? First to Jonathan, then to Ken.
Well, from talking with people, it's healthcare, and people not able to, people having insurance, but having deductibles so high they can't use it. And that's not having insurance. Education, making that a priority. Stop sending our tax dollars into other systems. Let's just fully fund our education system and see how good it can get. Let's pay our teachers well. Let's pay them the best in the nation and get people coming from all over the country applying to be here. And let's pick from the best of the best. Let's make this the state that every other state wants to be. That's my goal. And Northern Michigan is the best part of our state, if you ask me. It's why I live here. And I love it, and I want to protect it. It's pristine waters and beautiful forests. So protecting our environment, that's huge as well. But bringing in the broadband, making sure people can work, making sure they have livable wages, and making sure that everyone has that those three things that I'm focusing on: education, healthcare, and opportunity.
Thank you. And then to Ken.
Yeah, Scott, you said what was the one thing, the most important thing I think you said, right?
biggest challenge facing Northern Michigan over the next few years?
Yeah, biggest challenge. Yeah, the biggest challenge I think for me is obvious, that we need to get our economy rolling and robust. I mean, there's many issues that are going to be resolved when you have an economy that's doing well, that people are working well. It takes care of a lot of social issues. There's a lot of things we can do when our economy is rolling. So if we're going to narrow it down to one thing, I could go and list all the other huge issues that we have up here, but a lot of those issues are going to go away and be mitigated by a robust economy. So the number one challenge we have is to get that rolling, whether it's getting all the small businesses back on board, bringing in businesses. I've got some ideas on some businesses that can come to this area. We've grown Otsego County, I think, really well. I'm very proud of the things we've done in this area, but I think we can do better.
Thank you. And that is the last question that I have, and I will turn it back to Sarah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes our forum for the candidates for the 105th District. The Petoskey Regional and Charlevoix Area Chambers of Commerce, thank you for watching. Thank you to our moderator, Scott Ledour, and to North Central Michigan College for your partnership on this forum. And big thank you to our candidates for participating. The general election is November 3rd, 2020. We encourage you to get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to both of you. Best of luck.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you,
Good luck,
Jonathan.
Ken.
Best of luck.